What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the second vehicle that was part of that Porsche bundle, the lovely Porsche Panamera Turbo S Sport Turismo. I'm honestly really happy to see one of these Panameras actually added into the crew. I really did love driving this car back on Need for Speed, so to see this car being added into this game is honestly going to be a great sight to see. So similar to the Cayenne Turbo GT, this thing is also going to have a lot of customization. And for me, guys, the color I actually decided on this car is by far going to be this one. I'm honestly not sure what this actually is, but kind of like a greenish, like gasoline type of blue or something. I don't know, but regardless, it does look pretty dang awesome. But moving over to the visual parts, so the first thing is going to be the hoods here going into a carbon fiber, and you're basically going to have a upgrade and then aka carbon fiber upgrade after that. So I did notice this is kind of a trend with some of the upgrades on these cars as well, like similar to the front bumpers. You can also change one thing like the headlights and or go to the yellow cap headlights like that Evora. Surprisingly, guys, it does look pretty cool, but for some odd reason every time I look at this, I really do feel like I'm actually on Need for Speed, but I wouldn't say it looks terrible. I would most likely never put yellow headlight caps on a Porsche, but hey, if you are into that though, I guess it honestly would look pretty awesome depending on the build. But here's the next one. We also have a really big splitter on this car as well, which doesn't really fit it that great. I would probably like to see a Panamera with some crazy splitter setup like that, but moving over to the next one, guys, I'm actually digging the way this one looks as well. It kind of reminds me of the front end of a Cayman, which I actually think it is the front end of a Cayman. But moving over to the next one, once again, basically changes the headlights. And then finally, the last three is going to be this one with like the painted splitter, which really doesn't look all that bad, especially due to the fact that it is color matched. And then, of course, we have those yellow capped headlights, which really do not look the greatest with this setup. But moving over to the next thing, though, we also have front fenders and or rear fenders. So here's the first one, which basically makes that side piece carbon and or black. I can't really tell with this angle. Then we're going to have a crazy wide body for this car, which really doesn't look as bad as I thought though. And I do have a feeling we're most likely going to see one of these in a future summit. It's probably going to be called like the Panamera Turbo S, Green Night Edition or some crazy stuff like that. But regardless, guys, I probably would never wide body one of these cars, even though it doesn't look terrible. I would most likely never do that to it. But moving over to the rims, so for this one, there's actually going to be a lot more rims that are available for this Porsche that I did not see originally because of course when the cars are in a bundle, you obviously cannot pick which rims you actually want when you do purchase the vehicle. And by the way, guys, if you were wondering, by the way, after the bundle does go away, you will be able to buy these cars separately as well if you would like to, but moving over to the next rim though is also going to look pretty cool. I don't know why, but I'm not really feeling the way this one does look for the most part. But moving over to the next one, we're also going to have like that really nice bronze tannish color as well. I love how these rims look on a car. I actually have rims similar to this color on my Turbo GT. My goodness, it looks so dang good. But moving over to the next ones, it's going to be like a nice clean type of alloy finish to the rims as well, which I do think would look pretty dope depending on the color setup. But moving over to the next rim though is going to basically be those in black, which I do think these do look nice in that color with like the shininess going around the rim as well. But moving over to the next one, guys, I do think the style of this rim is kind of interesting. Not the biggest fan of it, but it definitely does look pretty cool. I guess it would kind of fit a different color combo. Obviously, depending on the one you guys might be going for, but the last rim, though, is going to be a gold version of that one that we just saw previously, which for this rim, though, I do think a like gold type of like tan finish on this looks so dang good, and I really would love to see more of these type of colors and or type of rims on the Crew too. For example, we have something like this. But moving back over to the rims though, guys, I would probably keep the stock ones on this car for the most part. I was actually going to change these off this car, but the more that I look at the other rims, I really do feel like these actually fit this color combo I was going for. But moving over to the next thing, we're obviously going to have the caliper colors, which I do believe almost every car does have this. besides a few exceptions there. But moving over to the next item, we're going to have the mirrors on the side. So I do have these stock ones, which it does look like there's no carbon fiber on this either. But the next one though is actually going to be fully painted. And then we're going to have like a fully black mirror on there, so it does actually look pretty cool. From what I can see though, I do not see any of these having carbon fiber at the moment. But moving over to these skirts now, guys, there's only going to be 3 of these. And I do have these stock ones on them. We're going to have the painted, which I do have to admit the painted skirts on this thing actually look awesome. Let's add that to it. Then we're going to have the carbon fiber ones with like the pieces sticking out. Not really a huge fan of that one either, but moving over to the rear fender, all we're going to have is the wide body kit, which honestly makes the back of this car look really weird. I don't know. I'm not really digging the way that looks at all there. Then we're going to have some rear wings as well, similar to the Turbo GT. One thing I've been also liking about this car is the fact that many of the parts for this thing are actually painted toward the vehicle. So depending on the setup you guys might actually want, at least it's going to match it. I really do love the fact that they're actually adding that with this vehicle. But moving over to the final thing is going to be 17 other rear bumpers, which really is going to be a lot of these for that matter. But the regular one right now, guys, you will see it's basically just stock here. Then you're going to notice the taillights change. Then we'll have the bottom diffuser being painted. That looks really cool. Let's add that one to it. Then we're going to have the darker taillights. Then we have the change here. Looks like the exhaust changes a little bit. Then we have the dark headlights once again. Then the painted diffuser. It's kind of funny because some of these pieces on these cars I really don't know what actually changes. I also really like the way those gold exhaust tips look. Wow, that looks really cool. Look at that. But it is kind of funny how some of these parts don't actually look like they change. I do remember back on the Crew 1 it always looked like they didn't actually change anything, and it turns out it's going to be a tiny carbon fiber piece. I also do remember that every part basically like floats above the vehicle, which was actually kind of cool, but also insanely different compared to the Crew 2. I really do wonder how they're going to do this on the next game, and my goodness, what in the world is that? Okay. See, those exhausts do not fit this vehicle. I would most likely never put those on there. They look way too big for the back of this car. Interesting. But moving over to the final thing, guys, is going to be the interior. So for this one, because my car is actually like this greenish gasoline color, I'm actually going to go with something like this interior color on here. And then move over to the 5th one, Alcantara. Then we're going to have like the carbon and or the wood and or like the nice matte finish. So for me, let's go with carbon. But that's basically going to do it for this Panamera, guys. I would say a lot of players are going to love this car. I am so dang happy to see this thing added into the Crew 2. But nonetheless, though, let's go do an outside look of this Turbo S right now, and also take this thing on a quick top speed test. So moving over to the outside look, I actually had to fix the caliper colors on the car because for some odd reason they always change. I had the same issue with the Turbo GT, but nonetheless, guys, I'm really digging the look of this Turbo S. I really do feel like a lot of players are going to love the fact that the Panamera is actually in the Crew 2, and or this car is also going to be in Motorfest as well. But one of the first things I noticed when driving this car down the street for a split second is going to be that crazy V8 sound. And then moving over to the interior view, guys, this thing's also going to have some nice detail. But one thing I did notice though is I actually did find the Turbo GT to have a better dashboard though. I'm actually going to show that right now as well because I feel like that car is a lot more clear. The one on this Panamera honestly doesn't look all that great, but I guess you kind of have to take the good and the bad with some of these vehicles. The rest of the interior in this car really does look nice with the carbon fiber. And you can also see the middle dash with the Porsche logo on the front there and or like Porsche itself. Then you're going to see the buttons in the middle of the thing there as well. So at least the rest of the car does look good. I do think a lot of players might get slightly annoyed with how that dashboard does look though, but at least the interior in this Porsche does look pretty awesome. And I would like to know in the comments below, by the way, guys, which German car do you think has the best interior? I really feel like this is going to be a pretty interesting debate, but overall, with the dash looking kind of odd in this car, it still luckily looks pretty decent overall. But besides all that, guys, let's go see what the top speed of this Turbo S is actually going to get to. So similar to the Turbo GT, I was noticing this car redlines 500 RPMs higher, which honestly, if you guys are running manual, is really not going to be a big difference. But I did find it slightly easier to shift when it's not insanely close like that. But this car is also going to have 7 gears, and with a nitrochemist set this car can hit. Oh man, listen to that engine. Wow, look at that, 256 miles per hour. So this is going to be one of the faster street cars. I might even go as far as saying, guys, I might have to start running this car a bit in summits because I normally do run the Carrera 4S, which I would say is underrated. I really do think the Panamera, what in the, um, does that, wait. What in the world did I just see? How did that car just... Okay, regardless, guys, I would say this car might also be slightly underrated as well. But even with that being said, though, I would 100% try this car in summits, though, because this thing feels insanely stable, and it also hits well over 250 miles per hour. So from the testing I have done with the Panamera Turbo S Sport Turismo, I'm going to say this right away, guys. I actually think this is going to be my favorite street car in the game at the moment. Not only does this thing sound absolutely incredible, but my goodness, it also handles insanely well. I'm most likely going to start using this car over the Carrera 4S. I really don't know why, but I absolutely love Porsches more than like every other German manufacturer. Don't get me wrong, like I don't hate Audis and or Mercedes, I just love the way Porsches are. For one, guys, this thing is going to be a 4.0 liter V8, and I do believe it's also turboed, obviously in the name there, but this thing is going to be insanely fast though, and it also feels insanely planted around corners. Now, one thing I was also noticing with this car when racing it was the fact that it's insanely easy to shift as well. Some cars, guys, especially in manual, can be kind of annoying trying to find the right gears around corners, and you can also find yourself shifting in and out of the right gear that you actually should be in. I did find the Turbo S here to be insanely easy to find the right gears, and this thing is also going to do 257 miles per hour, which is going to make it one of the faster street cars in the game. And compared to many of the other street cars, guys, a lot of them tend to do like 235 to like 242 and or in that range in general. So it's going to make the Turbo S around 15 to 20 miles per hour faster. For example, one of my favorite cars was the Q60S. That car is going to do around 238 miles per hour on a good day, so this thing's basically going to be 20 miles per hour faster than that car, and that really is going to make a difference, especially on many of the street races, because this car easily can get well above 250. It really doesn't seem to struggle in any way possible, especially with a nitrochemist set. I would definitely recommend trying out the Turbo S, guys. This car is definitely pretty incredible. I'm also going to try out the Cayenne Turbo GT a bit as well, even though that's going to be one of very few SUVs in the Crew 2 that can actually race. I do want to see how that car also compares to this one as well, so let me know in the comments below if you guys would like to see some different comparisons with these Porsches. I feel like they actually do compete pretty decently against some of the other cars in the game. I would actually go as far as saying the Panamera Turbo S might actually be one of the quote-unquote meta and or like one of the top street cars in the Crew 2. I really do think this car is going to be that good, but I would like to know what you guys think about this Turbo S Sport Turismo in the comments below. And here are my pro settings on the Panamera.